Hello everybody, and welcome to this webinar entitled The Benefits of PGT-A, PGT-M, and Expanded Carrier Screening in IVF Research. This webinar is hosted by EMG Health and brought to you by Thermo Fisher Scientific. In this webinar, we will hear from Dr. Murat Çetinkaya from the Istanbul Memorial Hospital in Turkey, we will talk about PGT-A and PGT-M, and also from Professor Volkan Baltaci, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Mikrogen Reproductive Genetics Company from Ankara in Turkey. He will be talking about PGT-A, PGT-M, and expanded carrier screening. But first, I will talk about Thermo Fisher Scientific Reproductive Health Comprehensive Offering. My name is Alan Livingston, and I'm responsible for the regional market development in the EMEA region. About Thermo Fisher Scientific, we have a mission that we are very proud of. We enable our customers to make the world healthier, cleaner, and safer, something that we all know is extremely important at the moment. So with Thermo Fisher Scientific and Reproductive Health, we want to be your trusted partner. We have three pillars here that we firmly believe in. Number one is offering innovative genetic solutions that enable customers to make future generations healthier. The use of our technologies really does push forward the boundaries in inheritable and inherited disease and allow our customers to identify aberrations with greater precision than before. Number two, we do believe in advancing our own customers' businesses. So what we are doing is we are allowing customers to expand their menus to increase the number of tests that they offer from our comprehensive menu of reproductive health solutions. And finally, we provide a world-class support to our existing customer base through our network of support offices throughout the world. Moving on to the comprehensive portfolio of reproductive health solutions that we have, if you look at the top left corner, you will see we have solutions around carrier screening, some of which you will hear about today. We have a solution which is a microarray-based solution, the Applied Biosystems Carrier Scan Assay, and we also have an NGS-based solution, the Ion Torrent Carrier Seq ECS Kit. Both of these solutions enable users to consolidate multiple assays or multiple carrier screening assays into one single assay. Moving on to the pre-implantation genetic testing, again, which you'll hear about in this particular talk today. We have solutions for both PGT-A and PGT-M in the Ion ReproSeq PGS kit and also our PGT-Seq kits range that we have recently launched. So you'll hear some of that discussed in the talks from Murat Çetinkaya and Volkan Baltaci today. What isn't the subject of this talk? We'll be talking about, we won't be talking about the prenatal and postnatal solutions. These solutions here are really based around our Applied Biosystems Cytoscan Cytogenetics suite, a state-of-the-art microarray solution which provides very high resolution and high sensitivity analysis of chromosomal aberrations in pre and postnatal samples. We also have the Cytoscan Exon Assay Kit, which is an exon level microarray, which gives an even higher resolution. And soon to be launched, we will have solutions around newborn screening that we will be bringing to market, and you'll hear more about these in the coming months. Should you wish to find out any more information, please go to thermofisher.com/RH, where you can find out the complete menu of tests that we offer. And with that, I'd like to draw your attention to the Q&A box, where you will be able to enter questions during this particular webinar, not to be confused with the chat box. use the Q&A box to enter your questions during this webinar. We really want to see what it is you're interested in, and we'll do our best to answer the questions. Also, we will have a number of polls during the webinar. You'll already have seen one of them. So these will be coming up during the webinar, and we'd like your participation in that also. So, and with that, I'd like to hand over now to Murat Çetinkaya, who will take you through his experiences at Istanbul Memorial Hospital. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Alan, for your nice presentation, and I will continue on my slides with PGT-A experience and implementing SMP haplotyping for PGT-M. Our clinic, Istanbul Memorial Hospital, offers research and technology for more than 20 years on assisted reproductive technologies and the whole spectrum of reproductive genetics tests, including PGT-A, PGT-SR, PGT-M, peripheral karyotyping, and infertility-related all the other molecular tests. So this is a disclaimer slide from Term of Pure Scientific. I have no legally binding attachments with the company. So PGT-A, how our PGT-A workload changed in recent years? Why do we perform PGT-A, and do the results show any benefit? I will talk about these points. So PGT-A trophectoderm samples, we are mainly doing trophectoderm samples, and we started PGT-A in the late 2011, and we are still continuing on the process. As you can see from the numbers, our numbers were more or less similar for the 4 or 5 years in the beginning, but beginning from 2015, we greatly increased our trophectoderm sample, PGT-A samples. At the moment, we are close to 4,000, and we are more or less stabilized at that point. This is more or less between our clinics, our ART clinics, and the genetic department's combination. We are working together to offer the best possible options for our patients. So, euploidy rate and probability of finding at least one euploid embryo according to maternal age groups. How does it change in PGT-A blastocyst data? This data includes all the data from all the samples from 2011 to 2019. So if we look for the woman's age below 35, 35 to 37, 38 to 40, 41 to 42, and 43 to 44, and over 44. As you can see, the euploidy rate decreases from nearly 50% for the youngest age group to almost 4% on the other side of the group. I mean, the old over 45 years of age. And but this, how does it reflects to the clinical part of the patients? How if they can do transfer and etc. And you can see that at this finding one euploid embryo, one transferable embryo for the couples is over 81% for the young age groups, but decreases nearly 17 to 20% for each age group, and decreases to only 8% for over age of 44. So it seems that clinically the most beneficial part for testing PGT-A is over 35 years of age to 40 or 42. And these are statistically significant. So, as you can think that this is the euploidy, or finding at least one euploid embryo for the couple does not only relate with age, it is also affected by number of analyzed embryos. So if we again look for the data in another way, here you can see that for the young age group, if you do more biopsies, like more than 4 or 5, almost all the couples have at least one transferable embryo. But this decreases sharply with the age group, and also it is directly affected by the number of analyzed embryos. So when we take this data and look for who to perform the PGT-A, it seems that the couples whose women's age between 35 to 40, if they have 1, 2, or 3 embryos, they seem to be benefiting from PGT-A really much. And over 40 years of age, if the couple has more than 2 embryos, they can really have a chance for a transfer. So ongoing pregnancy comparison for PGT-A single embryo transfer and non-PGT-A transfers, which includes single embryo transfer or double embryo transfers. And this is from 2011 and 2018, our clinics data. As you can see, below 35 years of age, the pregnancy does not change between PGT-A and no PGT-A groups. However, starting from 35 to 42, as you can see, this is statistically significant. The PGT-A group has much more higher chance for reaching an ongoing pregnancy. And keep in mind that in PGT-A group, the number of transferred embryos per blastocyst is only 1, whereas in non-PGT-A group, 1 woman out of 4 received a double embryo transfer, which leads to multiple rates of nearly 16%. And this leads to increase over 32 times more multiple rates in no PGT-A group. So on the other side of the study, 2 years ago, we published a small study investigating how PGT-A affects the time to pregnancy and number of transfers needed to make to a couple to reach a pregnancy. Here, mean number of transfer counts to reach an ongoing pregnancy in no PGT-A group, normal transfers, and advanced maternal age PGT-A group. We compared those two groups, and keep in mind that the PGT-A group age, woman's age, is nearly 10 years more. The number of transfers is actually lower to reach an ongoing pregnancy in the general population. And if we look for the time to get pregnancy, to achieve pregnancy in those two groups, PGT-A group actually reaches pregnancy nearly 80 days earlier when we compared to no PGT-A group, even though no PGT-A group was younger. And advanced maternal age PGT-A group patients reach ongoing pregnancy 1.5 times faster. So this is an interesting slide. It was from a paper which was published a few years back. And it says that NGS actually improves the pregnancy rates when compared with RACGH. I mean, this is at first it's not something expected because their resolution more or less the same. So they should be, the pregnancies should be more or less similar, but as you can see, the positive HCG for both groups is close, but when we go for gestational sag, fetal heartbeat, and ongoing pregnancy and live birth, the NGS group tested embryos lead to better pregnancy chances. I mean, this may be something related with mosaicism, actually, because NGS can detect mosaicism. So, Mosaicism. This is something I really like. I mean, you can either have a complete ways to adore, or it may be broken, it may be unapplied, or you can have a mosaic uh, to do something good with something broken. So our mosaic results during NGS data, blastocyst samples is around 12% for all the age groups and all the analyzed embryos. And our clinic actually wanted to look for the data. How does mosaicism changes between oocyte reserve of the patient? So we look for the poor reserve patients which have less than 5 cumulus oocyte complexes gathered, and normal reserve patients 5 to 12% cumulus oocyte complexes, and good reserve patients more than 12 oocytes. So actually, as you can see, the maternal age is low. This is more or less related with women's age. So older women have lower oocyte numbers. And as expected, the aneuploidy rates increases with age, and euploidy rates and mosaicism rate decreases also with age. Starting, for example, the poor reserve group only have 7.5% mosaic, but good reserve patients have nearly double ratio of mosaicism, 14%. But this was statistically significant when we compare mosaic embryos versus all the other embryos, which means euploid and aneuploid embryos, and this is statistically significant. But when we take out the aneuploid embryos out of the equation and look for only mosaic embryos and compare with them euploid embryos in the same groups, as you can see, the mosaicism ratio is actually nearly 26% throughout all the groups, all the ovarian reserve groups and all the ages. And this difference, the small difference between groups was not statistically significant. So in fact, the mosaicism does not affected by the age. It is only affected by the number of euploid embryos you have. So as the physiology suggests, in order to have a mosaic embryo, you should have an euploid oocyte combined with euploid sperms, and you should start with an euploid embryo. So this makes sense. The mosaicism only occurs after fertilization, and its prevalence does not change with age. So PGT-A summary, how to summarize how we performed all these studies throughout the years. We start, as I said, we started PGT-A in late 2011. We started to increase our numbers in early 2016, and we are continuing on here. This is our case graphic. So we initially started with AFCGH. We were doing back then fresh transfers. It was really a high workload. We were only doing 1 or 2 rounds per week, but it leads to high costs, and we can manage the logistics. We can manage the biopsy samples to be transferred to embryology laboratory, from embryology laboratory to genetic laboratory, and we can also doing fine with the distributors. But however, when we switch to increasing workload and fresh tests with frozen tests, we began to increase our workload, but this leads to 5 or 6 runs per week with RACGH. This really increased our costs, and we began to come into very frequent logistic problems, either from distributor sides or or from the embryology laboratory. So we switched to NGS platform in early 2017. At the same time, the clinic switched completely to frozen embryo transfer for PGT-A patients. This was still have a high workload because we were using back then emulsion PCR and we were running 2 to 4 chips per week. But it actually decreased our workload and it decreased our cost. So during this process, we have experienced some intermittent logistic issues, but those were manageable. But as our numbers more increased, on the mid 2000, the next NGS platform, the S5, we were started with a PGM machine, but we now is using S5. So we are still doing frozen embryo transfers. We have more stable wet lab workload. We are using Ion Chef with isothermal amplification. At the moment, we are running 1 chip per week, and we have a stable cost going on, and we don't really come into any logistic problem either on distributor side or from embryology side. So what we achieve and avoid by switching to NGS PGT-A, so we increased our capacity, testing capacity. We kept stable our biopsy to report time. It was maximum 7 days, and it is still only 7 days for reporting. We actually decreased our genetic laboratory costs, so we can offer cost-effective PGT-A to our patients. And we can safely detect mosaicism for blastocysts, and this leads to offer more detailed information on embryo status, which leads to better clinical management of the patients. So what we avoided, we did not ever exceed the recommended number of samples per run. This is very important for the quality of the results. And we also avoided fresh embryo testing and transfer. So we are strictly using freeze-all strategy. And what we plan to do, in fact, we are still working on how to utilize custom bin size for high resolution, to get high resolution, specifically for some reciprocal translocation couples. It's been shown that the resolution of these kits for research can be increased, and for some cases, especially on reciprocal translocation cases, this may prove useful for a couple to avoid any further tests. And also we are on the scientific research part, we are trying to apply alternative algorithms for detecting aneuploidies in embryos, which may ultimately discard the need of having reference samples for doing PGT-A in an embryo. This is, of course, only on scientific research at the moment. It's still going on, and if performs as expected, we aim to use it as a secondary evaluation before reporting with supply tools. So in the second part of my talk, I will talk about PGT-M and SMP haplotyping. So in PGT-M test we offer, we are continuously trying to improve our quality by increasing the information gathered per test, and by standardization of laboratory equipment and personal training, by simultaneous testing of PGT-A, and integrating exome analysis data to our PGT-M workflow, and ultimately by decreasing the cost when compared to currently used STR method, and we aim to decrease cost for both initial setup and feasibility studies and for the cost of embryo testing. We are looking this in two aspects for rare and or common genetic disorders. So our aim is to maximize the panel test efficiency for in these two groups for carriers of rare genetic disorders. We aim to maximize the cost effectivity of PGT-M by making those tests specific for being tested. What I mean that with minimum panel size, we aim to gather maximum information and specifically target only the informative SNPs. And we will do that by decreasing the cost of PGT-M for the families who already undergone exome sequencing and have their raw data on exome sequencing. We will select the informative SNPs only for these couples. And carriers of common genetic disorders, we aim to maximize the cost effectively in this case by making it suitable for testing many. So we aim to create larger panels, but these are suitable for covering many couples. We include the SNPs with high morphism, and we will decrease the initial cost for each new couple tested by following this strategy. So in our current status, we aim to use SMP haplotyping PGT-M for the research of selected common genetic disorders like thalassemia or cystic fibrosis, etc. Since the cost for initial purchase for a gene is still higher than STR approach, unfortunately, this is the case, at least in Turkey, maybe in other countries, they are more reachable, the kits. And however, the cost is when we when we take all the initial purchase costs out of the equation, the cost is comparable with STR approach for feasibility study and the embryo testing. Another interesting case I'd like to share is when the STR approach, we applied the SMP haplotyping for a couple, and we could manage the feasibility study completed with SMP haplotyping. It was the gene for AIFM1, which is an X-linked disorder, recessive disorder. It's combined oxidative phosphorylation deficiency 6. We were unsuccessful with STR markers. The feasibility study did not reveal any informative markers for the female at the gene locus, so the feasibility study couldn't be completed. So we initiated a SMP haplotyping PGT-M feasibility study. We selected more than 80 SNPs from the region, gene region, and also we included direct mutation testing. And out of these 80 SNPs, we can successfully select 16 informative SNPs flanking the gene region found informative for the female in the feasibility study. And here you can see the constructed haplotype, SMP haplotype for the couple and the affected child. And we can successfully select, identify which allele of the female was affected and linked with a mutation. So we could manage to perform feasibility study, complete it, and continue with a PGT-M test for the couple. Thank you very much for watching, and now I will leave the review to Alan. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that excellent and informative presentation, Murat. I would like to draw everyone's attention to the short poll we are conducting, which is now on screen. We'd appreciate it if you can consider your answers and enter these now. Thank you. May I also remind everyone that if you wish to ask a question of any of the panelists, please enter these in the Q&A box on your screen. So this brings us to our final presentation from Professor Volkan Baltaci, Chief Executive of Mikrogen Reproductive Genetics Company based in Ankara, Turkey. Professor Baltaci will talk about their experiences in PGT-A, PGT-M, and carrier screening. Over to you, Professor Baltaci.
Hello, everybody. This is Volkan Baltaci. First of all, I would like to thank Thermo Fisher for giving me this kind opportunity. I will share our experience on preconception screening and PGT-M applications, and also I will give our data regarding these two issues. These are my disclosures. This is disclaimer of Thermo Fisher. This is the outline of my speech. First, I would like to talk about general features of preconception screening panels. Then I will share our expanded panel and whole exome sequencing screening experience. And finally, I will give our combined PGT-M, PGT-A results and their effect on success rate of IVF applications. What's the objective of preconception screening test? Main aim is to determine whether a healthy person is carrying a disease-causing variation to minimize the risk of having a sick child. But due to ethical and medical reasons, preconception screening tests just focus on catching autosomal recessive and X-linked recessive diseases. Why do we need the preconception screening test? Because 80% of rare diseases have genetic etiology. Congenital anomaly rate is around 2 or 3% in newborn babies. Some rare diseases are fatal. The rate of rare diseases is quite high in some countries due to high consanguinity rate. Preconception screening tests are more crucial, especially for these countries. As seen on the map, consanguineous marriage is a global issue, especially in some countries in the Middle East. The consanguinity rate between couples rises up to 65%. In our country, the average rate is around 21%. Of course, carrier screening tests can be done at any time of life, but the ideal time is preconceptional period. Thus, this person can take some precautions in this period. What are these precautions? PGT-M, prenatal diagnosis, gamete donation, to accept the current risk, or partner changing. If we look at the screening panels, there are three main groups. First one is limited screening panels. These are generally hotspot panels for common mutations, and they are mostly preferred ethnic groups. NGS-based expanded screening panels have bigger capacity and cover 100 to 400 diseases. As the third group, whole exome sequencing and whole genome sequencing are gross technologies, and they can cover all ethnicities. But the major problem regarding these tests is their coverage, low coverage rate, and compared to other some methods such as microarrays. The other problem regarding these technologies is difficulties in detecting the variations such as deletion, duplication, or repeat mutations. However, today, by applying new technologies, we are able to overcome these difficulties. What is our expectations from an ideal carrier screening panel? A high specificity and sensitivity, screening large number of genetic disease, uniform coverage for all target genes, ability to evaluate SNVs, indels, and CNVs, detection of novel variations across all target regions, detection of hotspot intronic and intergenic variants, and an effective classification of all detected variations. Nowadays, we have some new expectations from expanded carrier screening panels. First of all, You need an ideal interface to clearly separate pathogenic or risk factor mutations from rest of the variants. The main issue is the presence of an average number of 700 variants of unknown significance detected with carrier reported for each case. Most analysis softwares uses CleanVar database and some internal tools for evaluation. This is common variant reporting strategy. Regarding variant reporting strategy, the common approach is just reporting pathogenic and likely pathogenic variants. With this point of view, uncertain significant class 3 variations are not reported. On the other hand, some of these class 3 variations can be still pathogenic. This point is the weakest part of this strategy. As Microgen, we follow this strategy, and we are reporting just class 1 and class 2 variations. But if there is a family history of any disorder, we are also reporting those that are clinically relevant class 3 variations. Here you can see the result of our validation study for an expanded panel. 31 clinical samples were tested by parameters, including coverage percentage of the target locus, uniformity of target coverage, and ability to call SMV, indel, and copy number variations. To challenge the system, we select difficult cases from our previously reported disorders and genes. As you can see, the system has quite successfully detected all CMVs and these specific variations in this validation study. As it is also seen on the second part of the table, false positive results due to gene conversion is still a major problem of analysis softwares. In order to overcome this limitation, a correction algorithm for gene conversion was used and satisfying results were obtained. This is our flowchart of preconception screening test for analysis and reporting. As it's seen over here, we are reporting only autosomal recessive and X-linked conditions and just class 1 and class 2 variations. If necessary, we test the other partner or other family members. Then we offer prenatal or pre-implantation genetic diagnostic options to the couples. Here is a summary of the stages of PGT. As it is known, PGT is testing of embryos before transfer to the mother. After IVF and ICSI protocol, embryo biopsy performed from day 3 or day 5 embryos. Then genetic testing is applied to these biopsied cells. After testing the embryos, detected as normal are transferred to the mother. Additional normal embryos can be frozen for the future transfers. Compared to prenatal diagnosis, PGT has some certain advantages. First of all, PGT protects the mother from medical abortion. It provides opportunity to select an HLA-matched sibling and allows simultaneous selection of Euploid embryos. PGT-M can be used for also some expanded indications. This technology can eliminate the risk of familial cancers or late onset disorders. And finally, by eliminating class 3 variations, unpredictable risks can be avoided from the next generation. This slide gives the distribution of disorders in our PGT-M cases and their comparison with European data. If we look at the European data, 12 of all monogenic diseases are more common ones and make up 90% of all diseases. These 12 diseases contain cystic fibrosis, spinal muscular atrophy, Fragile X, phenylketonuria, thalassemia, congenital adrenal hyperplasia, and other some disorders. When we look at our own data, consisting of 1,198 patients, while the overall rate of these 12 disorders is only 35%. The total rate of all other rare diseases is 65%. The most important reason of this situation is the presence of high consanguinity rate between the couples in our country. Because consanguinity between couples may cause very rare heterozygous alleles to come together as homozygous disorders. On the other hand, this situation also has some impact on both analysis and classification of the variations. If we focus on the classification of the variations in our PGT-M patients, a big part of them, I mean 36%, belong to class 3 variation group. By the way, I have to emphasize that all these class 3 variations were clinically relevant. In time, with increasing the number of cases, these class 3 variations may be reclassified as pathogenic or non-pathogenic. What we are doing for class 3 variations in our PGT-M practice. While there is a clinically relevant class 3 variation, there may be a class 1 variation that we don't know in the background. And this means that there is still a risk of having a sick child for the family. On the other hand, even a class 1 variant is present, a class 3 variation can still have an impact on the phenotype. And for this reason, it cannot be ignored. Considering all these possibilities, we have prepared a consent form describing the possible risks they may arise from class 3 variations. These are our two different wet lab protocols for PGT-M application. They both have advantages and disadvantages. First protocol is cell lysis and multiplex nested PCR, which has been gold standard method for PGT-M for many years. Major advantage of this technique is low allele dropout rate, but simultaneous chromosomal screening is not possible with this technique. Another limitation is that there is no chance to repeat the test unless you have a new sample. Second protocol is whole genomic amplification. This approach enables to perform both mutation analysis and to screen 24 chromosomes simultaneously. But major problem with this technique is a high allele dropout rate. To minimize this handicap, we are using target sequence enrichment VGA protocol and include informative STR markers into the test. Here you see a diagram of the combined PGT. Combined PGT is used to perform aneuploidy screening for embryos that are found to be normal following PGT-M application. These are the indications and expectations of combined PGT. As it's seen over here, both indications and expectations are similar with the classical PGT-A. However, many studies and our results have shown that the usage of PGT-A in combined with PGT-M improves clinical outcomes in all age groups, regardless of advanced maternal age criteria. This is a powerful study of RGI group regarding combined PGT application. Even though PGT-M patients are relatively young and fertile, this data suggests that aneuploidy is still an issue for this group. This report shows that increased pregnancy and decreased spontaneous abortion rate can be achieved with combined PGT. This is another study regarding same issue. In this study of Goldman, isolated PGT-M and combined PGT results were compared. When we look at the clinical outcomes of the study, even though the number of eligible embryos for transfer decreased after aneuploidy testing, the live birth rate was found significantly higher compared to PGT-M only group. In this study published by Ho et al., the effects of aneuploidy screening on clinical outcomes in young age women group undergoing PGT-M were investigated. It was shown that aneuploidy screening significantly improved the implantation, ongoing pregnancy, and live birth rates in young women with monogenic disorders in frozen embryo transfer cycles. The same study also showed a significant decrease in miscarriage rates. Finally, I want to talk about our combined PGT-M experience. Here, I compared the outcomes of our PGT-M and PGT-M combined PGT-A groups. We published this data in 2019. As it's seen over here, spontaneous abortion rate of our PGT-M only group is 15%, whereas this rate is only 5% in PGT-M combined PGT-A group. On the other hand, as it's seen here, the pregnancy rate was found higher in combined PGT-M group than the PGT-M only group. Here, I give the unpublished PGT-A data of our patients with different age groups following PGT-M. In patients group with below the age of 37, Euploidy ratio was found as around 52% following PGT-M. For the group of patients above 37 years, Euploidy ratio was found as around 28% following PGT-M. The aim of aneuploidy screening for PGT-M patients is not only improving IVF success, but also avoiding the birth of babies with chromosomal anomalies. As it is seen in this example, this case has just one normal embryo for monogenic disorder, but unfortunately, this embryo was found as trisomy 21 in PGT-A testing, as you see over here. As conclusion, screening tests can be chosen specifically for a given society. The population-specific screening test involving only certain diseases can be given as an example for this approach. Another approach is to choose expanded screening panels or universal screening tests. This one should be recommended for countries with high consanguinity rates between couples. About the conclusion of the PGT applications, PGT-M is a reliable technology and has many remarkable advantages. The combination of PGT-M and PGT-A should be also recommended for the young maternal age PGT-M group. Thank you for your time, and I would like to thank Thermo Fisher for hosting me and giving this kind of opportunity. Also, I would like to thank to my colleagues in both Microgen Genetics Diagnosis Center and Genard IVF Center. Thank you.
Thank you for that excellent presentation, Volkan. There's some really useful information that is contained within it. I would like to draw everyone's attention to the short poll we are conducting, which is now on screen. We'd appreciate it, again, if you can consider your answers and please enter these now. Thank you. Just before we start, I thought I'd give you the results of the first two polls. The first poll was, how do you perform PGT-A and PGT-M in your applications? 31% of you are using commercial kits, 8% of you are using your own panels, 12% are using another method, and 55% of you currently do not perform PGT-A. So if you are interested in doing any of that, get in touch with us and we can help you in that regard. For the second poll, do you perform carrier screening in your current IVF workflows? And if so, how? MLPA was 6%, NGS 29%, biochemical testing 3%, other 6%, and 61% of you currently are not performing carrier screening in your IVF workflows. So again, if you want more information on that, either ask questions here or get in touch with us, and we will endeavour to help you out. So I don't yet have the answer to the third poll. I'll get that, but what we'll do is we'll start the Q&A session. I see Murat and Volkan are both ready to answer questions. I'll start with one question to Murat Çetinkaya, where the person who asked the question actually was thanking him for this presentation and also your recent presentation at ESHRE, Murat. The question is, you mentioned that your target is to combinationally perform PGT-M and PGT-A. Do you currently perform this as a single TE sample?
Yes, actually, we are performing both tests from a single biopsy. In fact, like Dr. Baltaci explained, we are taking one biopsy, we are doing a whole genome amplification with it, and depending on the method, by SMP haplotyping or STR approach, we do the single gene testing, mutation testing in one side by allocating some sample from whole genome amplification, and we also do PGT-A from the same whole genome amplification. So it's doable.
Okay, good. Question for both of you. The implantation rate works best for fresh embryos or frozen? You know, which ones do you prefer? Maybe start with Murat again.
Well, this is more interesting question, but it depends on many factors. But in our experience, the frozen embryo transfer works better, especially with PGT-A cases. But this is not a fundamentally true thing, but this may be also related with clinical part of the IVF process. So as the technique is more suitable to frozen embryo transfer, we much like to do so, frozen embryo transfer. Their results are really good.
Yeah. And Volkan, what's your experience with, is it fresh or frozen embryos, which you prefer?
Yeah, nowadays, I mean, approximately last 1, maybe even 2 years, we shifted our cases to total freezing applications. And via this way, we can both obtain benefits from endometrial receptivity issue and to make elective PGT-A applications. And I think our results are much better in frozen cycles than the fresh ones. I think so.
Okay, good. Again, a question for both of you. What, in your view, is the main benefit of performing PGT-A and PGT-M in the way that you both describe for IVF? Maybe start with Volkan with that one.
Yeah, especially in our country, PGT-M issue is very crucial. And with the high consanguinity and the other genetic reason, our PGT, our single gene disorder carrier ratio is high in our country. And for this reason, PGT-M applications are very spreading in our practice, or also maybe Murat's practice also. And after PGT-M application, as you know, for autosomal recessive conditions, we obtained much number of healthy embryos, and then the autosomal dominant or X-linked disorders also. And in these cases, we need to make an aneuploidy screening to select best embryo for the patients. And PGT-A applications in our studies gives a high level success ratio in our study via this way. And I definitely suggest to my all patients without any age criteria after PGT-M applications, I suggest. Why I do this? Because this data actually not published, but my experience in the cases with single gene disorder carriers, aneuploidy ratio is a little bit higher than the equal age groups, control groups. So I want to suggest all the patients after PGT-M applications, PGT-A protocol, all of them, to do all of them.
And Murat, what in your view is the main benefit of PGT-A and PGT-M in the way you describe?
For PGT-M, the main benefit is, of course, good for eliminating the risk for having an affected child. This is out of question. There is no discussion there. So all the couples who are in risk for having an affected child, a genetically diseased child, should go through PGT-M. On the PGT-A side, the main benefit is to decrease the number of days, decrease the number of transfer needs per couple to reach an ongoing pregnancy. So by doing so, we are also eliminating or decreasing the risk for having a miscarriage and potential complications for that miscarriage. And also for the cost-wise, even for the couples who have only 1 or 2 embryos, the cost is really lower than actually doing a fresh transfer. So testing an embryo is lower than normal transferring without test. So in fact, the couples actually may learn if the embryo has a chance for implantation before even transferring it.
Okay, just again, maybe a brief answer on this one, because it's a fairly short question. Was it easy or difficult to deploy the NGS technologies in your workflows that you both described? Maybe Murat, you start with that one.
It wasn't an walking on the sunny day. It was not like that. We had some problems in the beginning, but that they were manageable. They were easily overcome, and we had in a few weeks, or at least one month was it actually, if I remember correctly, we were able to switch from ACGH to NGS platform. Yes, there were problems, but they were easily be overcome with the help from distributor and Thermo Fisher side. So it was nice. It was a nice experience, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And Volkan, you were one of our early access customers for the carrier-seq product. I mean, how easy were NGS technologies to deploy in your particular applications?
Ellen, let me get it again, your question.
Just how easy were NGS technologies to deploy, you have in your workflows? How easy was it to include these technologies in your workflows?
Okay. Actually, we use NGS technologies in our laboratory for many issues. The major areas, one of the major areas is PGT-A applications. And we also use it cancer cases, routine diagnostic area also, and our laboratory provides huge services to many big hospitals and big health organizations. For this reason, our case number per day very high, and NGS technology is crucial for this reason for us, on the other hand.
Okay. I'm being told we only have time for one more question. We still have a number of questions that are open. What we will do is we will save all these open questions and we will follow up with all of you with the answers to any questions that we have not answered in this particular presentation. So with that in mind, I will run through the questions and see. So question here I've got is, how can exome sequencing be integrated within PGT-M? And I'll put that to both of you.
Last slide.
Murat, maybe you can answer that.
As I mentioned in my presentation, our early aim was to decrease the cost for SMP haplotyping. So to do so, we had to select the minimum panel size for maximum informativity. What's the maximum informativity? To be able to get information, haplotype information from every SNP you have tested. In order to do so, we need to have the SMP information, the haplotype from the couple, and also if we had the exome sequencing data from the disease-affected child, we can use that data to select the SNPs that are really informative, that will give us information about the disease haplotype. So we can select only these SNPs for production of a kit and to use that kit in testing. Keep in mind that this approach will create a kit that is usable in a couple only. But in rare diseases, in long term, this may be also the most cost-effective approach. Well, you will only test that disease once per 10 years or so. So we have some of diseases like that, very rare diseases.
And Volkan?
Yeah, actually, this question, I think, regarding directly a technology which is called karyomapping. Maybe with this technology, as it's well known, the platform provides both single gene disorder information and the Euploidy or Untitled information. But there is important restriction regarding this technology. For example, for our country, in the consanguineous couples, it's nearly almost impossible to use that technology. And the other problem, you need to have an affected child in the family. If the family have no this kind of opportunity, it cannot be used, this technology. But I totally agree with Murat. Via SNP information, we can provide this kind of outputs with our applications also.
Okay, so I think in the interest of time, we have to draw the Q&A session to a close. We unfortunately do have 10 unanswered questions, which we will we have taken note of, and we will get back to you with these answers. Please allow a few days for us to do this. I'd like to thank our two panelists, our two presenters today, Murat Çetinkaya and Volkan Baltaci. Thank you very much for two excellent presentations, and judging from the number of questions we've generated,
There's been a lot of interest in this presentation. I'd also like to thank the European Medical Group for hosting this webinar for us. And finally, I'd like to thank all of you for attending this particular webinar. If you have any questions at all, you can contact us at Thermo Fisher Scientific, and we will endeavour to answer your questions. But in the meantime, I'd like to thank everyone again for attending, and we look forward to our next webinar, which is taking place on the 27th of August. Please look out for that, the invites for that. And we do hope that you'll be able to attend that. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Very much.